So I tweeted out the other day and I said, kind of funny that 3 NFL teams in Florida all play in different divisions. Because you think, okay, same state, they probably, at least one of them would be in the same division. But these 3 teams all play in separate divisions. You have the Bucks in the NFC South. You have the Dolphins in the AFC East, along with teams up here, by the way, with the Jets, the Patriots, and the Bills. The Dolphins, the southernmost team in the entire league, play up with some of the most northern teams. Over in the NFC, you have the Giants, NFC East. You have the Eagles in the NFC East. You have Washington in the NFC East. Who else is in that division? Is it the Ravens, who are less than 40 minutes away from Washington football team? Is it the Jets, who share a stadium with the Giants? No. It's the Dallas Cowboys in the middle of the country, down south there in the DFW area. You have the Dallas Cowboys. And some teams have moved, and it even has made sense. Like, the Rams were in the NFC West, right? Playing in St. Louis right here. They moved out back to Los Angeles. So it makes sense that they're in the same division as these super West Coast teams. The Rams are with the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Rams, and the Cardinals. That all kind of makes sense. But with some of these not really making a ton of sense, I've taken the liberty to realign the NFL divisions. And of course, it's not going to be perfect, right? I did my best to preserve some rivalries. Some people like to complain just to complain. Like, oh, this is terrible. But I think I've made some worthwhile changes that both preserve current rivalries, create some fun new ones, and make things make more sense geographically. So let's go ahead and hop into it. We'll start out with the AFC. Number 1 is AFC Division 4. AFC Division 4 is a fun one, and the names are jokes, by the way. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I'll explain when we get to some more relevant ones later. But we have the Ravens, formerly the AFC North. We have the Bills from the AFC East, Washington football team from the NFC East, and the Pittsburgh Steelers from the AFC North. So we do have 2 rivalries staying. We have the Ravens and the Steelers, big. But we also have a new one that's being created. If we go ahead and pull up the map here, let's go ahead and scroll over. You have the Ravens and you have Washington, who are, I think, 38 minutes away via one highway. And you'd figure when they're connected by the same highway, it's 40 minutes away to get there. You figure that they should be playing each other twice a year. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit weird to see some of these rivalries erased. Like, Browns and Steelers is, you know, an iconic one. And I feel like all the AFC North rivalries are big. And, I mean, Washington football team with the Eagles and some of the other NFC East teams, like, yeah, it is a little bit of an adjustment. But I feel like with these 2 teams being so close geographically, it makes a lot of sense for them to be in the same division. And then Buffalo is just kind of a weird one. I circled them earlier. They're basically on the Canadian border. Buffalo, right next to Niagara Falls, which is right in Canada, half and half with the US. I thought about maybe moving the Bills to this northernmost division here and have Bills, Lions, Packers, Vikings across. However, what do you do with the Bears? And I feel like these NFC North rivalries are so iconic, and you'll see that that division was unchanged. Spoiler alert. But AFC Division 4 is a fun one. I feel like we keep, you know, these 2 big rivalries. And the Bills, to be honest, like, it's such a tough one because, like, obviously with the AFC East, you have these teams that don't like each other because they play each other very often. But at least over the past couple of decades, that division has been dominated by the Patriots. So it's tough to say that there are any real, true, active rivalries. Obviously, the Bills don't like the Patriots, and all the teams in the AFC East don't. And the Bills were so good in the early 90s, too. I mean, they went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and, like, they have a history of being quite good. But I think it was time to just freshen things up, and the Bills just kind of ended up being that odd team out. But at least in current day, seeing, like, a team with history like the Steelers and then the Bills and the Ravens, how exciting would a matchup be between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson twice a year? I thought that was a pretty fun one. Next up, we have AFC Pizza. So these are teams from the Northeast. And yes, there are other teams in cities that are synonymous with pizza. People want to talk about Chicago with the deep dish. That's lasagna. If I wanted to do a lasagna division, yeah, maybe Chicago would be top of the list. But deep dish is not pizza. Now, they do have their own style of actual real pizza, which is cool. But we're not going to throw, the Chicago Bears into a division with the Giants, Jets from East Rutherford, New Jersey, the Patriots in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and the Eagles from Philadelphia. It's just not going to happen. Philly has their own pizza. It really isn't bad, I would say. And I live in Houston now. I'm from New Jersey. Pizza here is so horrible. I mean, it really is awful. And I think people in the South don't fully understand how bad it is down here because it's all they know. I mean, they think Little Caesars is top of the line. It's so bad in comparison. I had to preserve the Eagles and Giants rivalry. It's such a big one, and I felt it made sense geographically to both those teams together. The Patriots do good pizza up in Connecticut, which is New England and Massachusetts. They do it right up there. And then the Jets, too. People want to talk about it, and I don't think there's an actual good reason. I've heard different explanations and things like that, but there is no good reason, in my opinion, to have the Giants and Jets not play each other twice a year. They share a stadium. Some people were talking about, oh, you have the travel element taken out of it. I don't care. I do not care. They play in the same stadium. There's a natural rivalry there. It's like the Yankees and the Mets, at least from Mets fans' perspective, have a rivalry, even though they rarely play each other. You do have like the fun Subway Series, but there isn't anything like that with football. And there's no big Giants and Jets actual game rivalry. They play each other in the preseason every so often. They play each other in the regular season once every few to several years, it feels like. But I feel like it's a huge missed opportunity to not have two teams with massive fan bases play each other when they share a stadium. It really does feel like a missed opportunity. So I've decided to bulk the Giants and Jets in the same division. And then the Patriots, as you can see here in the top right, it was either adding the Bills to that division or the Patriots. And the Patriots are just kind of so plugged up into the Northeast that no other team really makes sense to join that division. So I think the Patriots were the obvious call there. And let me scroll up there. It didn't make sense for them to be in any other division. And geographically, I am trying to make this make sense. Next up, we have AFC Florida. And yeah, the big brain geniuses were getting on me on Twitter. I didn't know Charlotte was in Florida. I'm like, oh, my mistake. I thought for sure that Charlotte was in Florida. But yeah, I don't know if you noticed this, right? Let me get my my freaking pen tool out here. Florida, Florida, Florida. You don't matter as much as you think you do. So I think it obviously makes sense to have these three teams play in the same division. And yeah, it is kind of a weird division for sure, because you have teams that either have a big history of success, like a long time ago, like the Dolphins, who, won back-to-back Super Bowls. And then you have the Jags, who were an expansion team, who just really have never been good. I know they made the AFC Championship one year, but I don't need the Poindexters correcting me on that. They really haven't been good. It's just, a few years here and there where they've been somewhat successful. The Bucs have won a Super Bowl. They've won two, actually. They've been competitive. They have a history of being horrible, but they've turned it around and they've been more successful after like the 90s, really. And then, of course, you have the Panthers. They're another expansion team, and they really haven't had a ton of success. They've had a few seasons here and there where they've actually made the Super Bowl, but have never managed to come away with one. Of course, the Patriots and Broncos were standing in their way those seasons apart, but it just made the most sense for the Panthers to join that division. They're already in the division with the Buccaneers. There's just not really any huge rivalry that anyone other than Panthers fans really associate with the Panthers. I'm going to be honest. Like, yeah, you have the Falcons, Saints, and Bucks. I'm sure there's a little bit more of a hatred there for those particular teams, but it's only on account of them being in the same division. There's not really any rich history there, so I think it made sense to drag the Panthers into AFC Florida division. And lastly, we have the AFC Desert. Again, I had so many Chiefs fans from Kansas City be like, oh, I don't see a desert anywhere around where I live. It's like, oh, thanks, dude. No one wants to live in Kansas City. You think it's great because you live there. No, I could just say that about any city just to rile up the people who live there. Kansas City is a cool city. But yeah, it's not really about the Chiefs here. It's about the Raiders. Las Vegas is a desert. It's about the Cardinals. Phoenix is a desert. And then, oh, what about the Broncos? Yep, you think snow, you think cold, Colorado, Rocky Mountains. But there's not really any fun name for this division other, in my opinion, than acknowledging the desert. And there are some deserted areas in Colorado. It doesn't really qualify as a desert, technically speaking, and a desert is quantified by the amount of precipitation in centimeters. It's like, I want to say less than 20 centimeters in rainfall per year, or precipitation. I guess we can count snow, and it would be counted as a desert region, which Colorado is actually very close. It's not quite there, and I know I'm bulking up a large region, but yeah, I'm pretty good at geography. I don't know if you guys seen my third channel, Gene Dangus, which is linked down below. I play a lot of GeoGuessr on there. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm a geography whiz, but it should be pretty good evidence. I guess it's a good time for a quick little third channel plug. I play this game a lot on my third channel. It's GeoGuessr. You get placed anywhere in the world on Google Maps, and you got to figure out where you are. And I have managed to end up being quite good at the game, and I can do things pretty quickly, like figure out where I am immediately sometimes with pretty good accuracy. It's 31 miles away in Mexico, and it's not always quite so good, but there are so many different differentiating factors that can help you figure out where you are. I believe this is going to be Eswatini. Could be just regular South Africa, but it's going to be around there somewhere. It is Eswatini. So you pretty much get the point here. I don't have to just belabor the point and keep showing you how amazing I am. I think this is the Netherlands. So I'll throw that out real quick to kind of hammer it home. But yeah, basically you try to figure out where you are on Google Maps, and I'm pretty good at geography is what I'm getting after. And I'm not saying, oh man, I'm good at this game, I'm the best geography guy on the planet. I'm just saying I got so many tweets being like, this guy failed geography class. What do you think, Kansas City's in the desert? It's like, no, you're selfish. You think I gotta name the division? Oh, AFC Kansas City. And then the rest. There just wasn't really a good name for it otherwise. But yeah, it just makes sense geographically. Let's go ahead and pull up the map here. Like, we know Phoenix and Las Vegas are big time deserts. And you have the Colorado Broncos in Denver. Not the Colorado Broncos, but in Colorado you have the Broncos, who are in Denver, of course. They're just kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like, the closest team to them, it's tough to say. I mean, it's in between the Chiefs, Cowboys, Raiders, and Cardinals. They're all pretty close. Even Minnesota are like in proximity to each other. Maybe they're closest to the Chiefs, but again, they're not really that close to anybody. And you can kind of say that about the Chiefs too. So I think it makes sense to bulk those teams in the same division. They're in the AFC West in real life. The Raiders are actually in the AFC West as well. So you kind of keep that rivalry going between those teams. And then the Cardinals, it's another interesting one where, I don't know, the Cardinals have their stretches of being quite good at times, but I don't really think there's a huge rivalry there with the Rams or with the Niners or the Seahawks. I feel like Seahawks, Niners, and I mean, even Seahawks or even Niners, Raiders feels like a bigger rivalry to me than Cardinals, Niners, which may be a hot take. But for the division that you'll see later, it just makes the most sense to add these four teams to the same division. So we have AFC Desert as the Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders, and Cardinals. Over to the NFC now. We have NFC uninhabitable region. And that's because, and who did I talk trash about earlier? Was it KC? Yeah. If you live in here, I genuinely feel bad for you. And I'm not even trying to be funny. This is not a joke. But if you're in the Minnesota, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Detroit, Michigan, and Chicago range, wow. And oh, Chicago's an amazing city. Yeah, it's February 20th right now. How comfortable are you? Let's see the weather in Chicago. You know, it's actually pretty warm for Chicago right now. It's 44 with a low of 16. And then all next week, it's just straight highs of below 30. And this is warm. Dude, February being 44, that's warm for Chicago. It's all too cold up here. It really is. It's too cold. So if you're from up here, you know what? Better than you than me. Somebody's got to live here, and I'd rather not. I moved down to Houston, which has its own problems, where it's just wet all the time. And not even when it's raining, by the way. It's just, you walk outside, and you're wrapped in a blanket of humidity. It's disgusting at times, but it's nice right now. But yeah, I couldn't change the NFC North. I just changed the name to, you know, more reflectively, or to more accurately reflect what it's like up there. But yeah, I mean, it's just a classic division. These teams are all close to each other. They make this nice little diamond shape. And yeah, I'm just not going to change it. It wouldn't make sense to. The only thing, as I mentioned earlier, would be if I made NFC Canada and had the Bills, Lions, Packers, and Vikings, or, and this would be very odd, but do like Patriots, Bills, Lions, Packers, which I already hate, and then figure out the middle. It just would have been a mess. The NFC North had to stay together. Next up is NFC Yeehaw. Got some feedback about this one, as you won't find a cowboy hat near Atlanta or New Orleans, but it's the South, all right? There are fans of these teams that you can bet are chewing tobacco, spitting into a spittoon, nodding with a cowboy hat, hunting, fishing. That's what this is. It's hunting and fishing territory, which there's no problem with that if that's what you're into. But it is the South, basically. I wanted to call this like NFC, like, I don't know, accents. Because I think all of these regions have pretty particular, distinct accents. Got Nolans, you know, Georgia, Atlanta, but it kind of depends where you are, because Georgia's pretty huge. And then the two Texas teams playing together just kind of makes sense. Yeah, I don't know if there was a better name for this division, because, yeah, New Orleans and Atlanta are, I would say, certainly more, like, they're different from Houston and Dallas, is what I'll say. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just the South, right? This is the true South. Florida doesn't count as the South. And I know what you're saying. It's South. It doesn't count. Unless you are in this particular area. Unless you are here. Why am I drawing in? Where is it? Oh, unless you are in this particular area, the Panhandle, the rest of this is not the South. Not even close. Jacksonville, you know what? I could give it to you maybe a little bit. Now, the Carolinas are. I don't care where West Virginia is geographically. They count. And then all of this, Texas is kind of like when you start to draw the line. Like, I don't think anyone's really considering Oklahoma to be the South. But Texas is. So, I don't know. It's a little bit weird, but these teams just make the most sense to bulk up together. The Falcons and the Saints have such a deep history of being rivals, so much hatred between these teams, and it's funny because they've been like equally bad. The Saints have had their stretches at times, worse with Drew Brees, and like more recently we know the Saints to be quite good, and the Falcons have had their stretches of being quite good recently as well, although they've still been pretty bad recently too. They're up and down and historically haven't been great, but there is a big rivalry between the Saints and the Falcons. I couldn't really split them up, so I chose to save this one over doing anything with the Panthers. And then the two Texas teams, it makes so much sense for them to play in the same division, especially geographically. I mean, the Cowboys aren't even close to the other teams in their supposed rivalries, right? And now, as a Giants fan, I don't particularly care for the Cowboys. I know the Eagles fans feel the same, but here's the thing about the Cowboys is everybody feels that way. Unless you're a Cowboys fan, and Cowboys fans can attest to this, nobody likes the Cowboys. They're like the Yankees of the MLB, and I'm a Yankees fan. You know, I'm from New Jersey. Giants, Yankees. Nobody likes the Yankees. The Cowboys are that team for football, and I'm sure they're fine with it. But yeah, you can have a rivalry with anybody in the Cowboys division. They're just like the team that everybody likes to hate unless you're a fan of them, and they do have quite a lot of fans. So with the Texans and the Cowboys, same division, bulked in the Saints. Just thought it made sense geographically. Houston's really not too far from New Orleans, and just drag the Falcons in to have that rivalry with the Saints stay intact. And it didn't make sense to do anything with Carolina. So Cowboys, Texans, Saints, and Falcons is NFC Yeehaw. But this is more the Yeehaw range, and this is not so much, but it's the name of the division, so it is what... Am I drawing penis? Hold on. Ignore that. Next up. Why is that? Where is that? All right. Next up. Boom. NFC, AFC. Yeah. This is an NFC division composed of only teams from the AFC. We have the Bengals, we have the Browns, keeping that rivalry going. They both play in Ohio. I think that made sense. We have the Colts, also from the Midwest, Middle America type of range. And we have the Tennessee Titans from Nashville. Again, it just kind of made sense geographically when we look at, you know, all these teams packed tightly. It's pretty obvious that most of these teams are in the northeast of the US. That's just where it's more tightly condensed, the most people, highest population per capita, meaning more fans to root for these different teams. Out west, and maybe you've never thought of this before, but this doesn't have a whole lot of action going on in terms of people living there. It's just, that's why all these teams are more, have larger fan bases, because they have more people to root for them, right? And yeah, it gets a little bit more tightly condensed out west, and then you start to see, you know, more teams being out there. Basically, an NFL team map, or really any major sport, is just a map to show you how many people are from each area. And there's just more people up here. But these are still fairly condensed. If you look at the Browns, they're right here. You look at the Bengals, boom, right underneath. They're on the Kentucky border. You have the Colts, not too far from Cleveland or Cincinnati. And then Tennessee is just kind of like that odd man out again. We could make the divisions a little weird if it was going to be like Houston, New Orleans, Tampa, Miami, and then you could have a Nashville, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Carolina from, you know, North Carolina, Charlotte. So that is an option as well, but it's just not the option I went for, because I wanted to keep NFC Florida, or AFC Florida. Of course, only Florida teams, right? And yes, that includes the Panthers. They are Florida now. And then the last team, or the last division, we have NFC California. Yes, all California teams. You have formerly San Diego, now Los Angeles Chargers of California. You have the Los Angeles Rams. You have the San Francisco 49ers who play in Santa Clara, California. And then you have the Seahawks who play in Seattle, California. So it kind of made sense to keep all those teams together. When you look at it on a map here, you'd be surprised how far north California extends. But it's a long state, as we see the Seahawks up there. It just made sense. We already had taken care of the Raiders, Cardinals. So with the Raiders moving out of California, yeah, it would make sense to bulk them into that division. But then you're dealing with, what do you do with the Seahawks? Because this is Pacific time zone. All of these teams are Pacific time zone in this division. The Raiders, I think Las Vegas is Pacific. I'm near positive. And then Arizona is Mountain Time. And then I believe, I want to say Colorado is Mountain Time also. Yep, here's the time zone map. So we have the Mountain teams are pretty much staying together. Like the Raiders just snuck in over there. But yeah, I think it just made sense to keep the Pacific teams together. And look how funny this is. Half of Kentucky and half of Tennessee, basically, maybe less than half, are in different time zones. And even the Panhandle, Florida, that's just, they're built different over there. They don't even care. But yeah, it just made sense to keep these rivalries together too. And I am for, this map is not, where are the Rams? Oh, the Rams are right there. All right. This map is interesting because it is fully up to date, even though it looks like the Chargers and Rams are in different cities. They're both in LA, obviously, we know that. And I am so cool with the inner city rivalry. I think that's fun. And I try to make it make sense geographically, and that's what you get. If you have two teams that play in the same city, same stadium, right? It makes sense for them to not travel and just play each other twice a year and also build up the inner city rivalry. So I feel like the Rams and Chargers could have a really fun thing going. I know nobody goes to those games really, but hey, if you want to start going, you could have a little bit of a rivalry there. And then you have the Chargers, who have a significantly lower fan base in terms of what it feels like in terms of attendance. For Chargers Rams, you just have the Rams dominating, but they don't really have a ton of people show up anyway. So I don't know. Niners, of course, make sense to preserve, and then the Seahawks. I feel like with these three NFC West teams battling it out, the Rams are better now. The 49ers had their stretch of being like definitely the best team in the division, and so did the Seahawks too. It kind of went like, at least most recently, Niners, Seahawks, Rams. But these teams have been battling. I think it's cool to have them all stay in the same division. Of course, all California teams, no exceptions. And then you have the Chargers kind of thrown in there. So that is my version of realigning the divisions. I thought about maybe a Birds division where you had one division with 5. You'd have the Cardinals, Seahawks, Falcons, Eagles, and what's the other bird team I didn't name? Ravens. But yeah, you can't really have 5 teams in one division when you have 32 teams. So I don't know what you would do there. You could have like a big animals division. Buffalo Bills, Detroit Lions. I guess a Panthers pretty large, and Jaguars too, decently sized. Then with the Texans, if you're going to call that like a Longhorn, they're pretty big. A Rams pretty big. I mean, horses are pretty big. We could have a horse division. Broncos, Colts, and is there a third horse team? I feel like there is. Broncos, Colts, Chargers is another horse team, technically. Broncos, Colts, Chargers. Am I missing any other? You could have a pirate division with the Raiders, with the Buccaneers. I mean, why do I feel like I'm missing another pirate division? I mean, the Vikings are basically like just pirates from Scandinavia. So they could join that. I don't know. But that's just like messing around at that point. So there are a bunch of different options you can go with. But this is what I went up with. You know, it's pretty lighthearted. Just trying to have a good time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more videos like this, which maybe you do. This was fun to make. Hopefully it was fun to watch. I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.
It's insane, I hit it at the park, bend bones. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game, Nintendo. Playing with the best, let them know. Get off the track, the train's coming through. Yeah, promise you get in my way, then you best believe I'ma just run over you. Yeah, yeah. Papa turn, taking it back to the house. Defensive joke, I'm laughing so loud. Speedbird's good.